Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and we are finally today doing the first Amiami haul video. So before I go into that, to address the, invisible elephant in the room, because I don't know how much of a difference, a noticeable difference it'll actually make, but I have a new recording setup. So for the first two videos I just used my phone to record them, but that was a little tedious with getting the footage uploaded and into my editing software. So I went ahead and bought a camcorder. Originally I was going to use the same camcorder that I used to use when I recorded videos back in middle school, but apparently we got rid of that one, so naturally I went over to eBay to try and see if I could find the same camera. I did find some listings for it, but then what I ended up getting was basically the updated version of the camera that I used to use. Better video quality, better battery life. Anyway, so what we've got for this haul is going to be the last of my stuff that was stuck in the tariff prison realm. So for those of you that don't know, Japan, and by extension Amiami, had stopped shipping things to the US for like 6 months, like the second half of 2025, and then finally, right at the end of the year, they were able to start shipping things out again, so I was getting a bunch of orders all at once. Most of that stuff I've already opened up and put away and displayed and yada yada, but what we've got here is the last group of figures from that period, so like June or July to November, December, something like that. So I think what I'm going to do is we'll go through company by company with all the releases that I got, and then I'll kind of just go over some miscellaneous figures, and then we'll end on some Holy Grail figure pickups that I am really excited about. Alright, so as you can see, we're going to be starting off with Bandai, SH Figuarts. We've got the Egghead Chopper figure. I do think it's kind of weird that this is our first Chopper figure. I know we have the pre-timeskip version coming out this year, I think, but the One Piece line in general has been really weird with their releases, both in terms of engineering, quality, and versions or characters they're choosing to release. I don't really get what they're going for. I guess these Egghead ones, you could say they were just trying to cash in on the anime, which was airing at the time. But yeah, I would rather just have a complete set of the Straw Hats in one version before we get all these other costumes and outfits. Anyway, one thing to point out about this guy is he is very much out of scale, so he's going to be a lot bigger than the other figures, relatively speaking, which I guess makes sense. He would probably have a really hard time standing and be pretty fragile if they made him actually to scale. With Chopper's proportions and the giant head and giant faceplates, it does kind of remind me of a Nendroid. I don't have any Nendroids, so I don't know if that's actually the right scale, but yeah. Moving on to another small figure, we've got the re-release for the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith Yoda. So we got Yoda himself, comes with the chair from the Jedi Council room. Yeah, I think he looks pretty good. I'm super happy that they're re-releasing these figures. I did get Obi-Wan in one of my previous shipments, and I'm super excited for the upcoming Mace Windu and Anakin re-releases as well. I know last year they also did re-release some of the Phantom Menace figures, and then I think they released Jar Jar, who's a newer figure. So I'm hoping that trend continues with the Attack of the Clones ones as well, because some of those I'd really like to get. And then on that trend, we've got the new General Grievous figure. So this, I think, was shown at a convention or something like maybe 10 years ago. And it was shown a couple times, I think, but never actually released, and no info was ever given. But then one day it just sort of, the announcement popped up, and then it went up for pre-order, and now here it is. Obviously I'm really excited to pose this one up with Obi-Wan, recreating their iconic battle. Grievous, of course, was a childhood favorite of mine, how could he not be? So I'm really excited to have a nice, high-quality 1/12 scale figure of the character. And then with this guy coming out, it also does make me wonder, are we going to keep getting prequel-era Star Wars figures? Are they going to release some of those other prototypes that were shown but never made it out to the market? Time will tell. So moving on to Mafex, or Mafex, however you want to say it. We've got the AoE Age of Apocalypse Cyclops here. And I did get Wolverine, or Weapon X, in my last shipment, so I was very excited to get this guy. Obviously they were kind of being advertised as a set here, so pretty cool to have both of them now. I don't know if this is a controversial take, but I actually do like a lot of the AoE designs. I haven't actually read that storyline, but I think they're just, you know, pretty cool, very 90s-esque designs. And since I am currently building a Mafex X-Men display, that kind of brings me on to the next few figures. So I got the reissue for the classic look of Cyclops, or the Jim Lee era, I guess. And this is one that I've always wanted, so I was really happy that they're reissuing it. Kind of my strategy for collecting older Mafex figures is just to wait for the reissues. You know, I'm not in such a huge rush that I want to pay those aftermarket prices for them. Cyclops is one of my favorite Marvel characters, probably my favorite X-Men character, and I love this outfit for him. I do also have the Figuarts, Gamerverse, Marvel vs. Capcom, whatever version on the way, so it'll be nice to be able to compare the two, but I think they each kind of have their own place in the collection. And then, you know, I also had to get the Wolverine reissue, so this is going to be the blue and yellow costume. Funny enough, this is kind of probably the most iconic look for Wolverine, but it is somehow my third Mafex Wolverine. So like I mentioned, I have the Weapon X, and then I also have the black and gray X-Force version. So yeah, with those other Wolverines, you know, I kind of know what I'm getting into already, but always happy for a new Wolverine figure. And then finally, where would any X-Men collection be without a Magneto figure? This is the one I was probably most excited for out of all these Mafex figures. From all the videos and reviews I've seen, looks to be a really awesome figure with some really cool magnetism accessories. I do have the old Amazing Yamaguchi Magneto. I think that figure is really cool, but there are some issues with it. You know, the giant plastic cape does look great, but it weighs the figure down a lot. And then it does use those older Rebeltech joints. So I think that figure would actually benefit from one of those like 1.5 style updates they've been doing. But yeah, speaking of Amazing Yamaguchi and Kyoto, let's see what I got from them. Alright, so here we got the Amazing Yamaguchi Genos. This is obviously going to pair really well with the Saitama that released a couple months ago, I think. This is only the second release in the line, but we already know of a lot that are on the way. A lot of them are already up for pre-order, and then we've seen some prototypes for other ones. So pretty exciting. I really hope they do Sonic and Flashy Flash. Those are my favorite characters, so I would love to get actual figures of them. The only thing I really have is the Pop-Up Parade Sonic, but you know, that's a static statue, not a figure. And then the only other Rebeltech figure for this haul is going to be the Ninja Gaiden 3 Ayane. So I honestly don't know much about this one. I did get the Ryu Hayabusa, and that one's pretty awesome. I haven't actually played any Ninja Gaiden games. Generally, I'm trying not to buy figures from series that I don't know, but I am a pretty big Amazing Yamaguchi fanboy, and I think these figures look pretty great. I'm excited to get the other Ninja Gaiden 3 figures. There were a couple of them slated to release this month. I did just see they got delayed in Amiami. But yeah, hard to say no to a cool character design done by, you know, my favorite figure company. Next up, we got a couple figures from Medicos, starting with Dojan Focus, the Funny Valentine second color version. So I got the second color version of D4C, like the green looking one, in my previous order, but I've been waiting to open that one because I wanted to open them together, be able to pose them together, obviously. With the Super Action Statue JoJo figures, I kind of have the same mindset as Mafex, where I'm just kind of pre-ordering any new figures that I want, and then waiting for reissues of older ones to pick those up, not really going out of my way to fill out the backlog. But since JoJo is my favorite series of all time, I would really love to have a full collection with all the characters and all the different colors someday. But yeah, this Valentine color scheme looks pretty great. I do like the pink a lot. I hope they do reissue the regular white look with the blonde hair, but this one is also really nice. And like I said, with the green D4C, I think they pair really well together. Then we've got the second version of Johnny Joestar himself. So this is the like dark blue, dark purple version. Not my favorite color scheme for Johnny, to be honest. Maybe a little bit too vibrant, but I still think he looks pretty cute. I did just pre-order the other day the re-release for the regular color version, as well as the new articulated slow dancer figure, which looks really great. I know they did statues for some of the horses, but I kind of held off on it for a while to wait and see if there would be any other options, and lo and behold, we are now going to get the articulated horses, so pretty cool. I did see that if you pre-order from the Medicos store specifically, you'll get an alternate head for Johnny that has the Dark Determination eyes, which is really cool, but unfortunately, as with a lot of these things, I think that's only available in Japan. And then, breaking the trend of second color versions, we've got the third colorway for Gyro, which is a little hard to see with all the glare, but this is going to be the mostly brown with the green accents, which I think is a really awesome color scheme for Gyro. This is one of the figures that I was most excited for in this haul. I think it's a beautiful color scheme, and I think it will go really well with the second versions of Funny Valentine and D4C. Kind of brown, green, pastel, pink, purple. I think those will all go together really nicely. Although I do still want to get the main color version, which they did put up a pre-order for the reissue of that, so cool stuff. And then for our last Medicos JoJo figure, I've got the black version of Abakio, although I guess his original outfit he's also wearing black, but this is for the black Bruno squad color variations. I passed on these black versions at first, but then, kind of that completionist curse started to take over. For now, with my current setup, I can only display one colorway for each character, but I'd love to have the full Bruno team in all of the black versions someday. But until then, I'll probably pose this guy a little bit, take some pictures, and then he'll have to go in storage, because I do have the main Abakio already on display. So moving over to the miscellaneous items, or miscellaneous figures, we've got something that is not a figure. We've got a t-shirt. So this is from the company Caspa. They have a lot of shirts that go up on Amiami, so I just kind of pick and choose the ones that I like a lot. Try not to get too many of the same color. A lot of the shirts they do are white or black, so I have a lot of them already, but I did really like the design of this one. Sword Art Online is, not the greatest series, but it is pretty nostalgic for me, and I did like the design of this shirt. It's kind of mimicking shirts you'd see like employees at local game stores wearing, for example, to like hype up a release. I'm a big fan of this promotional merch type stuff made for movies and games, things that you really can't get anywhere aside from, actually being there or working on the project, or if you find it on eBay or whatever. But I just think it's kind of a cool, almost looks good in an ugly sort of way type thing. But yeah, just a fun shirt, and I guess it is glow in the dark, so that's something. Next up, I've got two figures from Keep Going and their Sangokushi, or Romance of the Three Kingdoms line. These are, as far as I know, the last two releases. I've been waiting to open up all the other ones until I had the full set together, but this is going to be Cao Cao, kind of one of the main, well, depending on which version of the story, one of the main villains, but one of the main characters regardless. I just said that these are the last two releases, which I hope is not the case, because there is no Liu Bei. And if you've read the manga or seen the anime, the old one, then you'll know that he's the main character, so it would be pretty weird if we did not get a figure of him. That being said, these figures here are not actually based on that version of the story. They're kind of their own take on the characters, so it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, Cao Cao. And then we have Guan Yu, obviously one of the most famous and important characters to the story. Then we've got kind of a big one. So we've got the Sexy Ice Manticora. If you're not familiar with this company, I think they're one of the coolest upcoming figure companies on the market right now. Super solid figures. This one I think looks to be the coolest one yet, just from what I've seen. With all their figures that I have, the detailing is great, the posability is amazing. they seem kind of Amazing Yamaguchi inspired, but in some cases I think they do it even better. Really looking forward to the red football version of like the Unkval Trooper or whatever he's called. I think it's actually in my December order, which I have not opened the box yet, but that is sitting right next to me. And this guy, you know, obviously no window on the box, so you can't really see, but as you've noticed throughout the video, I will have pictures popping up here and there just to kind of show what he looks like and what they can do. And then for another figure in a black box that you can't see, we have the InArt 1/12 scale Batman from Dark Knight Rises. So this figure, which you guys have probably seen by now, really made waves when it hit the scene, and so I definitely had to pick one up for myself. I did just get the standard version, that's just the one that Amiami had in stock, which I think is fine. You know, the unmasked Christian Bale head does look amazing, but I kind of thought to myself, you know, how often would I really be displaying him with that head versus just the regular masked head? The only thing that's lacking from this guy is a wired cape. I'm not the first one to point that out, but they are releasing that accessory pack with a couple other items, including a wired cape, so I guess that'll kind of complete the figure. I did pre-order the Catwoman as well. I think she might look even better than Batman, to be honest. And then we did see prototypes for Bane and maybe Joker, as well as a bunch of other versions of Batman characters, like Absolute Batman and stuff. So really excited to see what this company's doing. I don't collect 1/6 scale figures, which is what they are mostly known for, but now that they're getting into the 1/12 scale, I definitely have my eye on them. Although I will say, why is everybody doing Batman now? So many companies are doing Nolan Batman figures, Hush especially, and now that Absolute is the new big thing, I've seen a couple different companies prototyping those too. I guess strike while the iron's hot. And then for something completely different, I'm trying to cover up certain areas, if you know, you know. We have the newest Polyneon release. So this is the Macaron in the second color way. Despite some strange proportions on some of these figures, I do think they're really cute. It's kind of an underrated line in my opinion. They're one of my favorites in terms of like original IP figures. I think they're a lot of fun. I did only get into them a couple years ago, so there's a big backlog to collect. Hopefully there are more reissues coming soon, since I know they've been re-releasing some of the older figures. Next up, we've got a box that is pretty tough to fit all on frame, but this is going to be the transforming Black Getter figure from Dragon Horse or Iron Romance Workshop, I'm not exactly sure. But in one of my previous orders I picked up the red one, the Akaoni, so I'm really excited to have both versions now, because they are more than just recolors. So the Black Getter has some different accessories and weapons to differentiate him. Here's a look at the back of the box. And, you know, I'm not the biggest Getter Robo fan, but I did read all of the manga and I really enjoyed that, especially the later entries where they get into kind of the weird time travel, cosmic horror stuff. And then, of course, I also watched the Getter Robo Armageddon OVA, which is, you know, just one of the many beautiful 90s OVAs. I don't really care about the transforming, combining aspect of these guys as much. I was more into it for these Oni sort of takes on the Getter designs. But despite the transforming feature and the bulky nature of the designs, the posing is actually still really nice on these guys. And they don't really look like transforming figures at a glance. On the topic of Getter Robo figures, I absolutely cannot wait for the Amazing Yamaguchi versions. And then I do also have the incredible Pose Plus Metal Heat Series Getter 1, which was probably my favorite figure that I got last year. I'm really hoping that they do a Shin Getter and Black Getter. I know they're doing kind of the different transformations, and they did the Dragon Getter and those transformations, but I'm kind of holding off on those for now, since Getter 1 is really my favorite version of the mecha. And for our final figure of the miscellaneous section, we have the new Figma Okarun. This is another big one that I was really excited for. Originally, I kind of caved into the FOMO and ended up getting the Figuarts version of Okarun and Momo. Those figures, unfortunately, very disappointing. But then promo pics for this guy started popping up, and I thought he looked really, really nice. Hopefully, I have not been fooled by promotional pictures. Momo also looks great. I think she is in stock and she'll be coming in my January order. I really like the soft goods sweater and the giant psychic hands effects, pretty nice. But yeah, this guy looks really good. Figma recently, in recent years, has been kind of a weird company. Some of their figures stick to that tried and true Figma style with the classic Figma joints and limited articulation, which is fine because, I think they're more about the aesthetics, which they usually nail. But then sometimes you get figures like, this one, or the recently released Skull Knight figure, or the Elden Ring and Demon Souls figures, where they've got, updated articulation with double joints and everything, ton of paint, ton of design work, and they just seem like they were almost made by a different company. So yeah, they're kind of a weird company nowadays with some inconsistent design philosophies, but I don't really mind because they still make generally pretty nice figures. On the note for Dandadan figures, I did also kind of want to wait and see what the Reveltech one would look like. I thought he did not look very good. And then the promo pics went up for Evil Eye Gigi, and I thought he looked even worse. Those figures are actually just like regular Reveltech figures. They're not part of the amazing Yamaguchi line, which surprised me because I feel like Yamaguchi's style would fit really well with the dynamism and the crazy action of Dandadan, but we got this guy at least, and Momo. Moving on to the two Holy Grail pickups from this haul. So first one's going to be Figma Shinobu from Monogatari. This is one that I've been wanting for years now, ever since I got most of the other figures. Ononoki is now the only one that I'm missing. Shinobu is probably my favorite character, besides Araragi, and Monogatari is my favorite anime. I'm still working my way through the light novels, but I did read the Bakemonogatari manga by Oh Great, which was really nice, with really awesome art. I did not realize that the Air Gear guy was that good, since I have not read any of his other series. I guess you could say I'm almost as happy as Shinobu eating a donut to have this figure. Shout out to Amiami's pre-owned figures. In my experience, as long as you get one that is where the figure is graded A and the box is graded B, that basically means brand new, nothing wrong with it, and probably unopened as well. So yeah, really hyped for this one. I also did pick up a Beast Gohan SHF figure, used as well from Amiami a little bit ago, and same case, A grade for the figure, B grade for the box. I think it was legitimately brand new. And then speaking of Dragon Ball, our last figure for the haul, and one of my most exciting Grail figures that I'm so happy to finally have, is the SHF Super Saiyan 4 Goku from Dragon Ball GT. This is a figure that I've wanted basically as long as it's been out. I didn't get it originally. I kind of got overwhelmed with collecting Figuarts Dragon Ball stuff with how many releases that were coming out and all the updates and different versions of Goku, Vegeta and all that. But I've come back to collecting the line, mostly just focusing on 3.0 style figures, and I think this guy was one of, if not the first 3.0 figure in the line. It also could have been maybe that powered up Namek Goku, which I'll be picking up the reissue for that when that comes out later in the spring. I don't love everything about GT, but I think I probably like it more than most people. But one thing I think that nobody can deny is how awesome the original designs are, and it's really cool to actually get nice, high quality, highly articulated figures from GT. So we've got Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta. Vegeta I still need to pick up at some point. Then we've got some of the other characters, but what we really need are some more villains. We did recently get Super Android 17, but what I really need is Super Baby 2 and Omega Shenron at the very least. Now that I finally have Super Saiyan 4 Goku in hand, I think that might motivate me to pick up Vegeta sooner rather than later, so I can get them together. But I want to make sure I find them, in good condition and for a good price. So yeah, that is everything I have for this haul, and like I said, now I'm finally caught up with all the figures that were, trapped in that Amiami warehouse over that 6-month period last year. As mentioned, I already have my December haul in a big box right next to me, still unopened. I wanted to get through these first before I started digging into those figures, but I do want to film that one soon because obviously now we're at the end of January, so I will be having my January order on the way soon as well. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed watching and hearing me rambling about these figures that I think are cool. Thanks for watching, and see ya.